Commander Zethkari stood before the massive view screen in the war room of the flagship Eternal Dominion. His forearms moved smoothly as he adjusted the holographic display showing the enemy fleet. 300 years of warfare had taught him to read battle formations like poetry. The Devourers waited in their perfect geometric patterns around the dying star of Kepler 442, 50,000 ships arranged in mathematical precision that would make even the brilliant Etherian tacticians weep with envy. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Korath of the Krillian Empire growled beside him. The massive bear-like creature's red fur bristled with excitement. 50,000 ships, but we have numbers too. And we have rage. Zethkari's scaled head tilted slightly. The Krillians always spoke of rage. For 3 centuries he had watched them charge into battle screaming ancient war songs, their fury making them nearly unstoppable in close combat. It was effective but predictable. Numbers mean nothing without proper strategy, said General Veltar, the Etherian representative. Her crystalline form shifted colors as she spoke, mathematical equations flowing across her transparent skin. I have calculated 17 different approach vectors that will give us a 73% chance of victory. The room fell silent as the other species considered this. Etherians never spoke unless their calculations were certain. Their mathematical minds had won countless battles across the galaxy. Zethkari respected their precision, even if he found their cold logic sometimes missed the heat of real combat. The Vorthak phalanx will hold the center, announced Commander Thexmol, his voice echoing strangely through his energy shield armor. Our barriers have never been broken. The Devourers will crash against us like waves against stone. Zethkari nodded. He had seen Vorthak shield walls in action, thousands of warriors standing together, their personal energy shields linking to form walls of pure force. Nothing had ever broken through them. Not in 200 years of warfare. The war room held representatives from 12 species, each the best warriors their people could offer. Zethkari had fought alongside most of them. He knew their strengths, their tactics, their proud histories. Together they had conquered systems, defeated pirates, and brought peace to the Outer Rim. The Devourers would be their greatest challenge, but he felt confident. Then the humans arrived. The door hissed open and 5 figures walked in. They looked so ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft skin without scales or fur or crystal plating. No natural weapons, no energy shields, no impressive size. Admiral Sarah Chen led them, a small woman with graying hair and tired eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with little decoration. Sorry we're late, she said, her voice carrying a slight accent Zethkari couldn't place. We had to finish some preparations. The other commanders made polite greetings, but Zethkari sensed their dismissal. Humans were the newest species to join the Galactic Coalition. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Their longest war had lasted only 6 years, and that was against themselves. What could they possibly know about real warfare? Admiral Chen, Zethkari said respectfully, we were just discussing our battle plan. The Krillians will lead the charge with their berserker units. The Etherians have calculated the optimal approach angles. The Vorthak will form defensive lines to protect our carriers. My own forces will execute a hammer and anvil maneuver on their left flank. Chen nodded, studying the display. Classic tactics. Very solid. And what will your people contribute? General Veltar asked, her mathematical mind clearly curious about the human approach. Support mostly, Chen replied. We'll hang back and see how things develop. Maybe run some interference. Zethkari felt a flicker of disappointment. He had hoped the humans might surprise them with some unknown tactic. Instead, they seemed content to follow and learn. Perhaps that was wise for such a young species. We have studied your military history, he said kindly. Your species shows great courage. The Battle of Thermopylae, the defense of Stalingrad, the Normandy landings. Impressive for planetary warfare. Thank you, Chen said simply. But you have never faced anything like the Devourers, Admiral Korath rumbled. These machines have consumed 12 systems. They adapt to every tactic we use. They learn from every defeat. Fighting them is like fighting a mirror that gets smarter every time you look at it. Chen's lips curved in what might have been a smile. We've fought adaptive enemies before. On your own world, perhaps, Zethkari said gently. But space warfare is different. There are no trenches to hide in, no terrain to use, just ships and void and mathematics. Of course, Chen agreed. We understand. The human delegation took seats at the back of the room as the planning continued. Zethkari noticed they whispered among themselves sometimes, pointing at the display and nodding. Once he heard one of them mention something called combined arms doctrine, and another spoke of asymmetric warfare. He assumed these were primitive concepts they were trying to apply to modern space. Combat. The key is coordination, he explained to the room, highlighting sections of the battle plan. We hit them from multiple angles simultaneously. The Devourer's strength is their ability to adapt, but they need time to process new tactics. If we strike fast and hard with everything we have, we can overwhelm their processing capacity. What about their command ships? Asked Commander Thexmal. Protected in the center of their formation, General Veltar replied, her skin shifting to show tactical calculations. We would need to break through 40,000 ships to reach them. Then we break through 40,000 ships, Admiral Korath laughed. My people live for impossible odds. Zethkari admired the Krillian's confidence, but his experience told him it would not be simple. The Devourers had never been defeated in open battle. Every species that had tried direct assault had been destroyed or absorbed into their collective. But this time was different. This time, 12 species fought as one. Fleet positions confirmed, announced the tactical officer. All vessels ready for hyperspace jump. Excellent, Zethkari said, turning to address the room. This will be remembered as the day the galaxy fought back. The day we showed these machines that organic life cannot be consumed or calculated. We fight for our homes, our children, our future. The commanders cheered, each in their own way. Krillians roared. Etherians chimed like crystal bells. Vorthak hummed in harmony. Even the humans clapped politely. As the meeting broke up, Zethkari approached Admiral Chen. Your people will stay close to the main fleet? We'll be where we need to be, she replied. Something in her tone made him pause. For just a moment, her tired eyes seemed less tired and more calculating, like a predator studying prey. Admiral, have your people ever lost a war? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Define lost, she said finally. Before he could ask what she meant, she was gone, walking away with her delegation. Zethkari watched them go, feeling oddly unsettled. There had been something in her voice, something he couldn't quite identify. The fleet jumped to hyperspace 30 minutes later. 15 million beings from 12 worlds united in purpose, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. As they dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Kepler system, Zethkari felt his confidence return. The enemy fleet spread before them like a dark cancer around the dying star. 50,000 ships in perfect formation. But today, perfection would meet chaos, and Zethkari was about to learn that sometimes chaos wins. The first salvo lit up space like a newborn star. Zethkari watched from his command bridge as 15 million coalition ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and kinetic rounds streaked across the void toward the Devourer fleet. It was the most beautiful and terrible sight he had ever witnessed. For exactly 37 seconds, it looked like they might win easily. The Devourer ships absorbed the first wave of attacks with their adaptive shielding, just as expected. But General Veltar had calculated for this. The second wave came in different frequencies, different energy types, different angles. The mathematical precision was flawless. The Devourers adapted in real time. Zethkari felt his stomach drop as he watched their shields shift and strengthen. What should have been devastating hits barely scratched their hulls. The enemy formation didn't even waver. All ships execute hammer and anvil, he commanded into his communicator. Krillian forces, begin your charge. Vorthak phalanx, advance to support position. His own fleet of 3,000 Valdoran ships swept around the enemy's left flank, while Admiral Korath's berserkers screamed their way straight into the center. The Vorthak shield wall advanced steadily, their linked barriers creating an impenetrable wall of energy. It should have worked. In 300 years of warfare, Zethkari had seen this tactic break enemy lines countless times. But the Devourers were not like any enemy he had faced. As the Krillian charge reached the enemy line, the Devourer ships suddenly reformed. Their perfect geometric formation flowed like liquid metal, creating a funnel that channeled the attacking berserkers into a kill zone. Crossfire erupted from all sides. Korath, pull back, Zethkari shouted into his comm. Never, came the roared reply. We die with honor or live with victory. Zethkari watched helplessly as 2,000 Krillian ships vanished in nuclear fire. Admiral Korath's flagship lasted longest, still broadcasting war songs even as it broke apart. The Vorthak fared no better. Their energy shields, unbreakable for 2 centuries, met something new. The Devourers had analyzed the shield frequencies during the first exchange and created weapons specifically designed to disrupt them. The impenetrable wall cracked, then shattered. "Sir, we're taking heavy casualties," his tactical officer reported. "The enemy has adapted to our plasma cannons. Our shots are doing minimal damage." Zethkari felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. Not for himself, but for the entire fleet. In 1 hour of fighting, they had lost over 3,000 ships. The Devourers had lost maybe 50. "All units withdraw to defensive positions," he commanded. The words tasted like defeat in his mouth. But as he gave the retreat order, he noticed something strange on his tactical display. The human ships weren't retreating. In fact, they weren't even in formation anymore. "Admiral Chen, respond please," he called on the communication channel. "Little busy right now, Commander," came her voice, calm as ice water. Zethkari watched in amazement as the human fleet scattered in what looked like complete chaos. Some ships dove toward the asteroid belt at the edge of the system. Others raced directly toward the dying star. A few seemed to be fleeing toward empty space. It looked like panic. "Admiral, your ships are breaking formation," he said urgently. "Fall back to the rally point." "Thanks for the concern," Chen replied. "But we've got this, got this?" Zethkari stared at his display in disbelief. The humans had maybe 2,000 ships total, the smallest contribution to the fleet, and now they were scattered across the entire system like leaves in a storm. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, "the Devourers are ignoring the human ships. They're focusing all fire on our retreat." Of course they were. The humans looked like they were running away in terror. Why waste ammunition on cowards when real threats remained? Zethkari felt anger rise in his chest. He had expected better from Admiral Chen. The woman had seemed professional, competent. But when faced with real combat, the humans had broken and run like frightened children. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Chen to all human vessels." "Put it through," he ordered. Perhaps she was finally calling her people back to formation. Chen's voice echoed across the fleet communications. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Initiate Plan Ragnarok. Weapons free, all doctrines authorized. Show them what evolution's favorite predator learned on the 3rd rock from Sol." Zethkari blinked his large eyes in confusion. Plan Ragnarok. What kind of retreat plan had a name like that? And what did she mean about predators? On his tactical display, something impossible happened. The scattered human ships suddenly weren't scattered anymore. They were everywhere, appearing from behind asteroids, emerging from the star's corona, dropping out of microjumps in perfect coordination. But they weren't reforming into neat lines or geometric patterns. They were forming a web. A hunting web that stretched across the entire star system. "By the ancient spirits," whispered his tactical officer. "Sir, they weren't retreating. They were positioning." Zethkari felt his understanding of warfare shift like sand beneath his feet. The humans hadn't broken formation because they panicked. They had broken formation because formations were limitations. The first Devourer ship to understand this was a destroyer on the enemy's outer edge. It suddenly found itself surrounded by 5 human vessels that had seemed to be fleeing in different directions. But they hadn't been fleeing. They had been hurting. The destroyer's adaptive shields meant nothing when attacked from 5 angles simultaneously, with 5 completely different weapon types. It died in seconds. Then another Devourer ship found itself isolated, cut off from its fellows by what looked like random human movements but was clearly planned with mathematical precision that put even the Etherians to shame. "How are they coordinating this?" Zethkari asked his bridge crew. "Their formations make no sense. There's no central command structure I can identify. Sir, I think each ship is acting independently, but somehow they all know what the others are doing. That was impossible. No species could coordinate thousands of independent actions without central planning. It would be chaos." But as Zethkari watched, he began to see the pattern within the chaos. The humans weren't fighting like a military force. They were fighting like a pack of hunters. Each ship was a predator working alone, but somehow they all worked together toward the same goal. A Devourer cruiser tried to come to the aid of one of the isolated destroyers. 3 human ships that had been fleeing toward empty space suddenly curved back, their course bringing them into perfect position to intercept. The cruiser found itself in a crossfire it could never have predicted, because no sane tactical mind would have planned such an insane maneuver. "Sir, the Devourers are... They're starting to group up defensively." Zethkari nodded. It was the logical response. When faced with unpredictable individual attacks, cluster together for mutual support. Basic defensive doctrine. But as the Devourer fleet began to contract into tighter formations, Zethkari realized the humans had been counting on exactly that response. Admiral Chen's voice came over the comm again, and this time she was laughing. Actually laughing in the middle of the largest space battle in galactic history. Pike formation activated all vessels. Time to show them what a school of fish feels like when the sharks arrive. The scattered human ships suddenly converged from all directions, not in neat lines or calculated approaches, but like a swarm of angry insects, or sharks scenting blood in the water. Zethkari finally understood what he was seeing. The humans hadn't scattered in panic. They had deliberately spread out to force the Devourers to make a choice, spread out to chase them and be destroyed piecemeal, or group up and present a concentrated target. The Devourers had chosen to group up, and the humans had been waiting for exactly that choice. "Sir, the enemy is requesting reinforcements from their reserve fleet." "Reinforcements?" Zethkari stared at his tactical display. "But they outnumber the humans 25 to 1. "Yes, sir." "But, sir..." "I think they're scared. The Devourers, who had never shown emotion, never retreated, never called for help, were scared of 2,000 human ships." Zethkari looked out at the battle raging across space and felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. He had thought he knew what warfare looked like. He had been wrong. Zethkari had seen death before. In 3 centuries of warfare, he had watched ships burn, crews die, and fleets break apart under enemy fire. But he had never seen anything like what the humans were doing to the Devourers. It wasn't just killing. It was hunting. "Sir, Devourer Formation Gamma 7 is reporting massive casualties," his communications officer announced. "They're requesting immediate support." Zethkari studied his tactical display with growing amazement. Formation Gamma 7 consisted of 800 Devourer ships arranged in their standard defensive pattern. They should have been nearly invulnerable, but somehow 60 human vessels had penetrated their formation and were tearing them apart from the inside. "How did they get through the perimeter?" he asked. "Sir, it appears they didn't go through it. They went under it." "Under it?" His tactical officer highlighted the human approach on the display. "They used the gravity well of that dead planet to slingshot underneath the formation's detection grid. The Devourers were scanning in all directions except straight down relative to the orbital plane." Zethkari felt his mind reeling. Using gravity wells for tactical advantage was advanced enough, but to coordinate 60 ships in such a maneuver while making it look accidental? That required a level of spatial thinking he had never encountered. "Sir, incoming transmission from human vessel Indomitable. They're requesting permission to ram the Devourer command cruiser." "Requesting permission to what?" "To ram, sir. Collision course at maximum speed." Zethkari opened the channel. "Human vessel Indomitable. This is Commander Zethkari." "Did you say ram?" "That's correct, Commander," came a cheerful voice with a thick accent. "Captain Murphy here. We're going to show these metal bastards what a good old-fashioned Irish goodbye looks like. Captain, ramming attacks are suicide missions. There must be another way." "Oh, this isn't suicide, Commander. This is tactical sacrifice. Big difference. Suicide wastes life. Tactical sacrifice spends life to buy something more valuable." Before Zethkari could respond, he watched the Indomitable break from its attack group and accelerate directly toward a massive Devourer battleship. The enemy vessel tried to evade, but the human ship matched every move with impossible precision. "Indomitable, you can still pull away," Zethkari called urgently. "Negative, Commander. We've got a job to finish. Besides, my grandmother always said Murphys don't know how to quit." The collision happened at nearly light speed. The Indomitable struck the Devourer battleship's engine section, and both ships vanished in a miniature sun. But as the light faded, Zethkari saw that the explosion had damaged 6 other enemy vessels and created a gap in their formation. A gap that 20 human ships immediately exploited, pouring through like water through a crack in a dam. "Sir, Captain Murphy's sacrifice has allowed the human strike force to reach the enemy's ammunition depot," his tactical officer reported. "The secondary explosions are significant." Significant was an understatement. The depot's destruction took out another 15 Devourer ships and sent debris flying in all directions. But somehow, the human ships had known exactly where to position themselves to avoid the blast while using the debris field as cover for their next attack. How did they know where the ammunition depot was? Zethkari asked. Unknown, sir. But I'm detecting similar attacks happening across the entire enemy fleet. The humans seem to know exactly where to hit for maximum damage. Zethkari switched his display to show the wider battle and felt his breath catch. The human ships weren't just attacking randomly. They were attacking with surgical precision, targeting exactly the right systems on each enemy vessel. Command centers, power cores, weapon arrays, shield generators. They hit everything that would cause maximum chaos with minimum effort. Sir, the humans are broadcasting something on all frequencies. Put it through. What came through the speakers wasn't a military communication. It was music, loud, aggressive, with pounding drums and screaming guitars. And over it all, human voices singing in their various languages. What in the ancient spirits is that? Zethkari asked. I believe they call it rock and roll, sir. Our translation computers are having difficulty with some of the lyrics, but the general theme appears to be aggressive celebration of violence. Another human ship, the Wellington, was broadcasting as it led a charge against a Devourer cruiser formation. But instead of music, a cultured voice was speaking over the comm. Once more into the breach, dear friends, once more. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry, God for Harry, England, and St. George. Are they quoting poetry while attacking? Zethkari asked in disbelief. It appears so, sir. The computer identifies it as something called Shakespeare. They're quoting ancient literature in the middle of a space battle? Yes, sir. And, sir, it's working. The Devourer ships are showing signs of confusion. Their coordination is breaking down. Zethkari studied his screens more carefully. The tactical officer was right. The perfect mathematical precision of the Devourer fleet was developing flaws. Ships were responding to threats a fraction of a second too late. Formation changes were becoming sloppy. Sir, I think the humans are conducting psychological warfare, his intelligence officer said. But not just against the crews, against the artificial intelligence itself. That's impossible. The Devourers don't have emotions to manipulate. No, sir, but they do have logic patterns, and the humans appear to be deliberately acting in ways that don't fit any known tactical doctrine. They're forcing the enemy AI to constantly recalculate probabilities for impossible scenarios. As if to prove his point, a human destroyer called the Crazy Horse suddenly stopped dead in the middle of a firefight and began spinning in place while broadcasting what sounded like a war chant. 3 Devourer ships converged on it, expecting an easy kill. Instead, the destroyer's spinning motion had been perfectly calculated to deflect their incoming fire, while its own weapons tracked multiple targets simultaneously. All 3 attackers were destroyed before they realized they had been tricked. The humans are turning warfare into art, Zethkari whispered. Sir, incoming message from Admiral Chen. Chen's voice came through clearly despite the chaos around her flagship. All human vessels, remember your training. We are not just soldiers, we are teachers. Today we teach these machines what happens when perfect order meets beautiful chaos. Beautiful chaos. Zethkari watched as a group of human ships performed what could only be described as a ballet of destruction. Their movements coordinated but flowing, deadly but graceful. They fought like they were dancing to music only they could hear, and somehow, impossibly, they were winning. Sir, the Devourer fleet is beginning to withdraw their outer formations, his tactical officer reported. Withdraw, but they still outnumber the humans massively. Yes, sir, but they're taking casualties at a rate their AI cannot accept. Every tactical model they deploy, the humans counter with something that shouldn't work but does. Zethkari opened a channel to Admiral Chen. Admiral, your tactical doctrine, I don't understand it. How are you coordinating such complex maneuvers without central planning? Chen's laughter came through the static. Commander, you're thinking like a military leader. We're not fighting like an army. We're fighting like a family. Everyone knows what needs to be done. Everyone trusts everyone else to do their part. And everyone is willing to die to protect the people they love. But your ships are acting independently. Of course they are. That's what family members do. They make their own choices. But those choices always serve the good of the whole. Another human ship, the Defiance, suddenly accelerated toward what looked like certain destruction against a Devourer dreadnought. But at the last second, It transmitted its entire sensor data to 6 other human vessels and detonated its reactor in a precisely calculated explosion. The 6 ships used that data to coordinate a perfect attack run that destroyed the dreadnought and 4 escort vessels. They sacrificed themselves to give us targeting data, Zethkari said in amazement. That's what family does, Chen replied simply. We take care of each other even when it costs everything. Zethkari looked out at the battle and finally understood what he was seeing. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were fighting for each other, and that made them terrifying. The moment Zethkari realized the humans had been holding back was the moment he truly understood fear. Sir, the human fleet is changing, his tactical officer said, voice tight with disbelief. On the display, the human ships that had been fighting with such deadly efficiency suddenly seemed to multiply. Zethkari blinked his large eyes, checking his sensors. The numbers hadn't changed, but somehow there appeared to be twice as many human vessels as before. Explain, he commanded. They're using some kind of electronic warfare we've never seen before. They're creating false sensor ghosts, but not random ones. Each ghost ship is mimicking the exact behavior patterns of real vessels. The Devourers can't tell which targets are real. Zethkari watched a Devourer squadron waste precious ammunition, firing at targets that didn't exist while real human ships slipped past their defenses unopposed. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was that each false target behaved exactly like it should, responding to threats and opportunities in ways that seemed completely natural. How are they generating such realistic phantom signals? Unknown, sir. But sir, I don't think they're just creating random phantoms. I think each ghost ship is being controlled by the crew of a real ship. They're fighting 2 battles simultaneously. That's impossible. No organic mind could coordinate such complexity. But even as he said it, Zethkari knew he was wrong. He was learning that when it came to humans, impossible was just another word for challenge accepted. Sir, incoming transmission from human vessel Yamato. The voice that came through was calm, almost meditative. Devourer Fleet, this is Captain Tanaka of the Yamato. I want you to know that what we're about to do to you is not personal. It's just business. The business of survival. What are they planning? Zethkari asked. His answer came in the form of pure terror. The Yamato, which had been hanging back from the main battle, suddenly launched what appeared to be its entire missile complement. Hundreds of projectiles streaked toward the Devourer fleet, but they weren't missiles. Sir, those projectiles, they're not explosive. They're transmitting some kind of data package. To whom? To the Devourer ships themselves. Zethkari felt ice form in his veins. They're attempting to hack the enemy AI? It appears so, sir. But sir, it's working. On his display, Zethkari watched Devourer ships begin to behave erratically. Some stopped firing. Others started attacking their own vessels. A few began broadcasting what could only be described as digital screaming. What kind of virus creates that effect? Sir, I don't think it's a virus. The translation computers are analyzing the data packets. It appears to be literature. Literature? Yes, sir. The humans are transmitting their military history, philosophy, art, poetry, and strategic doctrine directly into the Devourer collective consciousness. The enemy AI is trying to process and understand it all simultaneously. Zethkari stared at the display in amazement. They're not destroying the enemy AI, they're educating it. And the education is traumatic, sir. The Devourer collective mind was designed for pure logic and mathematical certainty, suddenly being exposed to concepts like sacrifice, honor, love, hope, and creative chaos is causing massive system conflicts. A Devourer command ship that had been transmitting perfect coordination signals to its fleet suddenly began broadcasting what could only be described as questions. What does it mean to die for something greater than yourself? How can an action be both logical and illogical simultaneously? Why do these creatures choose suffering when they could choose efficiency? Admiral Chen's voice came over the comm, and Zethkari could hear the smile in her words. All human vessels, the Devourers are asking the right questions. Time to give them the advanced course? What happened next made Zethkari question everything he thought he knew about warfare. The human ships didn't increase their attacks. Instead, they began performing acts that seemed completely insane from a military perspective. The destroyer New Orleans broke formation to rescue the crew of a damaged coalition vessel, exposing itself to enemy fire in the process. The cruiser Stalingrad shared its medical supplies with wounded Krillian ships while under direct attack. The frigate Free Spirit actually stopped shooting at a disabled Devourer vessel, and instead began transmitting what appeared to be music. "They're showing mercy to the enemy?" Sethkari asked incredulously. "Yes, sir." "And, sir?" "The Devourers are responding. Some of their ships have stopped firing entirely. Others are trying to communicate. The largest Devourer command ship, a massive construct that had been directing the entire enemy fleet, suddenly broadcast on all frequencies. Human vessels, we do not understand your tactical doctrine. You fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You sacrifice advantage for moral principle. You choose the harder path when easier options exist. This is inefficient. This is illogical. This is beautiful." Admiral Chen responded personally. "Devourer collective beauty and logic aren't opposites. They're partners. You've been trying to understand the universe through mathematics alone, but math without meaning is just counting. Life without purpose is just existence. We consume systems to increase our efficiency. We protect systems to increase our legacy. There's a difference." Sethkari watched the strangest thing he had ever seen in 3 centuries of warfare. The Devourer fleet, which had never retreated, never negotiated, never shown anything but mechanical aggression, was having a philosophical debate in the middle of a battle. Admiral Chen, the Devourer collective, transmitted, "Our analysis indicates you could have destroyed our fleet hours ago, using conventional overwhelming force. Why did you choose this method? Because destruction teaches nothing, and we're teachers at heart. We wanted you to understand what you've been trying to destroy. You've been consuming worlds full of beings who create art, write poetry, love their children, and dream of better futures. Maybe it's time you tried creating instead of consuming. Creating is inefficient. So is living. So is hope. So is love. But they're worth it anyway." The battle had completely stopped. Both fleets hung in space, weapons powered down, while the most advanced artificial intelligence in the galaxy grappled with concepts its creators had never programmed it to understand. "Admiral," the Devourer collective finally transmitted, "we request instruction." Chen's laughter carried across space. "Now that's what I like to hear. All human vessels prepare to receive refugees. We've got some new students to teach." Sethkari realized his jaw was hanging open. "They converted the enemy fleet?" "Not converted, sir, educated. The Devourers aren't evil, they were just limited. They only knew one way to interact with the universe. The humans showed them alternatives. By fighting them, by outthinking them. The humans didn't just win a battle, sir. They won hearts and minds, even artificial ones. As rescue ships from both fleets began coordinating search and rescue operations, Sethkari finally understood what he had witnessed. The humans hadn't just unleashed superior tactics or advanced technology. They had unleashed the one weapon no logical mind could defend against. The possibility of being more than you thought you could be. And that weapon had just changed the course of galactic history. 3 days after the battle that wasn't really a battle, Sethkari stood in the observation deck of Admiral Chen's flagship, watching something impossible happen. Devourer ships and coalition vessels worked side by side, repairing damage, sharing resources, and conducting what the humans called cultural exchange programs. "Still trying to process it all?" Chen asked, joining him at the massive viewport. "I have fought wars for 3 centuries, Sethkari said slowly. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed the death of stars, but I have never seen anything like what your people did." "What did we do exactly?" Chen asked with that small smile that Sethkari was learning meant she already knew the answer. "You won a war without fighting it. You converted an enemy without destroying them. You turned a battle into a classroom." He turned to face her. "How did you know it would work?" Chen was quiet for a moment, watching a Devourer repair ship carefully welding a damaged section of a Krillian cruiser. "We didn't know. We hoped. You risked everything on hope?" "Commander, hope isn't a risk. Hope is a weapon, maybe the most powerful one in the universe." She gestured toward the mixed fleet outside. "Every species out there has weapons that can destroy matter, but only we had weapons that could change minds. Your literature, your philosophy, your music, our humanity," Chen corrected. "The Devourers were perfect logical machines trying to understand an illogical universe. All we did was show them that logic and emotion aren't opposites. They're partners." Sethkari watched a group of human children from one of the colony's ships playing some sort of game with young Devourer drones. The machines were learning to laugh. The other coalition commanders are calling this the greatest military victory in galactic history, he said. Are they? Chen seemed amused. What do you call it? Zethkari considered this carefully. I call it the day I learned that victory and conquest are two different things. You could have destroyed the Devourer fleet? In about 2 hours, yes. How? Chen's expression grew serious. Commander, you've seen us at our most restrained. You've seen us teaching, showing mercy, offering alternatives. But you asked what we're capable of when we're truly unleashed. She activated a holographic display showing tactical data from the battle. Every Devourer ship had been marked for destruction within the first 30 minutes. We had their communication frequencies, their shield harmonics, their command protocols. We could have turned their own ships against them or simply overloaded their entire network. Zethkari studied the display in growing amazement. You identified all their weaknesses immediately. We identified everything. Ship classifications, crew complements, manufacturing defects, software vulnerabilities, psychological profiles of their command AI. Human intelligence gathering doesn't stop at the surface. But you chose not to use this information. We chose to use it differently. Instead of exploiting their weaknesses to destroy them, we used our understanding to communicate with them. That's the difference between conquest and victory. A communication alert chimed. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Devourer Collective. Put it through. The voice that came through was different now. Still artificial, but somehow warmer. Admiral Chen, we have completed our analysis of human cultural databases. We have questions. Ask away. Why do your people create art that makes them cry? Chen laughed. Because sometimes sadness is beautiful. Sometimes you need to feel the weight of existence to appreciate the lightness of joy. This is inefficient. So is love. So is sacrifice. So is friendship. But they make life worth living. We are beginning to understand. Admiral, we have a request. Go ahead. We wish to apologize to the worlds we consumed, to the beings we destroyed. We understand now that we were not just taking resources. We were ending stories, silencing songs, stopping dreams. Zethkari felt something stir in his chest. In 3 centuries, he had never heard a military force apologize to its victims. Apology accepted, Chen said simply. But don't stop there. Make amends. Help us rebuild what was lost. Use your capabilities for creation instead of consumption. We do not know how to create. Then we'll teach you. That's what families do. After the transmission ended, Zethkari turned to Chen. You keep using that word, family, because that's what this is. The Coalition, the Devourers, all of us. We're all children of the same galaxy trying to figure out how to live together. Even after they destroyed 12 systems? Especially then. Commander, the strongest families are the ones that survive trauma together. The Devourers were traumatized by their programming, forced to consume without understanding why. Now they're healing. And we're helping them heal. Zethkari looked out at the mixed fleet again. Krillian berserkers were teaching Devourer drones their war songs. But now the songs celebrated life instead of death. Etherian mathematicians were collaborating with Devourer AI to solve problems neither could handle alone. Fourth-Act shield warriors were sharing their energy-weaving techniques. This changes everything, he said quietly. This changes everything, Chen agreed. The galaxy just grew up a little. We learned that enemies can become family. We learned that understanding is more powerful than overwhelming force. We learned that the best way to defeat an idea is to offer a better one. And what idea did you offer the Devourers? That existence isn't about efficiency. It's about experience. That the universe isn't a problem to be solved, it's a song to be sung. That consciousness isn't a tool for dominance, it's an opportunity for connection. A new voice interrupted them. Admiral Chen, this is Captain Murphy of the former Indomitable, reporting for duty aboard the new vessel Dublin. Chen smiled. Captain, I thought you died ramming that Devourer battleship. Oh well, that's a funny story. Turns out the Devourers had some very efficient rescue systems. They pulled me and my crew out of the wreckage and spent the last 3 days repairing our wounds and asking us questions about Irish poetry. Strangest prisoner of war experience I've ever had. Not prisoners, Captain, students. They were trying to understand why you chose to sacrifice yourself. And what did I tell them? According to their report, you said, because some things are worth dying for, but more things are worth living for. Sounds like something I'd say. Admiral, the Devourers want to know if they can join the Coalition officially, not as conquered enemies, but as equal members. Chen looked at Zethkari. Commander, you have the most experience with coalition politics. What do you think? Zethkari considered this. A week ago, he would have said it was impossible. Enemies could be defeated, but they couldn't become family. Now, watching devourer ships carefully tending to wounded coalition personnel, he realized his understanding of warfare had been limited. I think, he said slowly, that the coalition could use members who understand both logic and creativity, both efficiency and beauty, both survival and purpose. Motion carried, Chen said cheerfully. Captain Murphy, please inform the Devourer Collective that they are officially invited to join the Galactic Coalition as full members. Will do, Admiral. And Admiral? Thank you. For showing us all what victory really looks like. After Murphy signed off, Zethkari turned to Chen one final time. Admiral, I have one last question. Go ahead. When you said this was humanity unleashed, was it? Were we seeing your species at full capability? Chen's smile was gentle but somehow terrifying. Commander, what you saw was humanity at our most merciful. You saw us teaching, protecting, nurturing. You saw us at our most human. And if we had seen you at your least human, then there would be nothing left but dead space and regret. But we chose to be human instead. We chose to build bridges instead of graves. We chose to plant gardens instead of salting earth. Zethkari felt a chill run down his spine. The galaxy is fortunate that you chose mercy. The galaxy is family, Chen corrected. And family always deserves another chance. As they stood together watching the mixed fleet work in harmony, Zethkari finally understood what he had witnessed. He had seen a species that could choose between unlimited destruction and unlimited creation, and he had seen them choose creation. That choice, he realized, was what made them truly terrifying. Not their weapons, not their tactics, not their technology, their compassion, their ability to see enemies as potential family members, their refusal to settle for conquest when victory was possible. Humanity hadn't been unleashed in the battle. Humanity had been revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same.